Do you have a success coaching process that you use for clients that want better performance? Hey, this is Jeffrey T. Suey with CoachesTrainingBlog.com. And in my practice, I work with lots of business and professional clients that are driven to succeed, compete, and break through to the next level of performance. They struggle with things like staying focused and motivated, performing under pressure, staying confident, and letting their creativity and charisma flow. And so today I'm going to share a weird little success coaching process that I recently used for a client that was coping with performance issues that she raved about as a major paradigm shift for her. I call it the attachment awareness process. We'll also talk about where does attachment limit your client's success, the kind of results your client gets from the attachment awareness process, and the most common coaching myths and misconceptions around attachment. So let's start right now. So I recently actually used the attachment awareness approach, and it was in a coaching session that happened last week with a client of mine. She was worried about the webinar she was about to do. Actually, that evening we were doing our session in the middle of the day, and she couldn't even be 100% with me in the coaching session. She couldn't be totally focused. And I told her, notice how attached you are. And she stopped and she thought about it and didn't really respond. And so then I asked her, what are you attached about that has to do with the webinar? And she gave me a list of things. She said, I'm attached about the webinar going well, and attached about the tech working out okay, and attached about people responding to me, just like a laundry list of things that she was pretty attached to. She probably wouldn't use those exact words. She probably said something like, I was concerned about it, or I'm anxious about it, or I'm worried about it, something like that. But I wanted to shift the focus to the attachment that she had to the way that she wanted it to go. And so I told her, look, you're just attached to all that stuff. You're attached. Be aware of your attachment. Now, what's interesting about this client is that she was actually a performance artist in a previous life. So I talked to her about this, and I kind of used that as an example, and I asked her, when you performed in the past as an artist, had you ever had a time when you had performed perfectly? And she said, oh yeah, I've had plenty of times where I performed perfectly. And I said to her, at that time, during those performances, you weren't attached. You just flowed. You didn't think about how it was going to go. You weren't worrying about that stuff. You had no attachment, or whatever attachments you had, they weren't stopping you from your performance. And look, this webinar for you, it's the same. It's a performance that will be diminished by your attachment if you let it diminish you. And so then I gave her some straight coaching, and I said, look, when you're done with this session today, when you hang up, what I want you to do as you're preparing for the webinar is just keep being aware and notice your attachment. Just keep looking for and be aware of when your attachment comes up and how it impacts you. And then just acknowledge it. As soon as you see that you're attached, just acknowledge it. Say, hey, I'm attached. I'm attached to this. I'm attached to that. And then just repeat that. When you're preparing for the webinar, as you're starting the webinar, throughout the entire webinar, just notice how attached you are to all the things happening the way you want it to happen in the webinar. So anyway, a couple days later, she actually emailed me and she said, this is like a major paradigm shift for me. And I actually haven't had a session with her since then yet, so I don't know what other breakthroughs have happened for her as a result of it, but I can already tell she's kind of raving about it, so I'm excited to see. Where does attachment limit your client's success? Pretty much every area of their life. So think about it, like in relationships or with people. Like in your intimate relationship or in your client's intimate relationship, they could be overly attached, and so they become needy in that relationship. Or maybe they're attached to their partner being a certain way, and they're constantly complaining or upset about that. Also with any relationships with people, there can be attachments about the relationship going a certain way, attachments to having a certain type of relationship with a certain individual. There's all sorts of attachments that we have. If you go and speak in front of people, or you connect with a group, or you're trying to climb the ladder in your career with your coworkers, if your client is trying to impress certain people or look a certain way to certain people, they're probably attached to that. And that attachment, even if they have influence with those individuals, it's probably going to reduce their performance and their ability to make a difference in that relationship and actually to show up the way they like to show up. Think about the area of money. There's so many money attachments. People get stuck in their career because they're attached to the money that comes from that, even though they're not really happy with that career. Or they're afraid to make a certain investment decision because they are attached to the money, and so they just hold on to their money as it diminishes with inflation. All sorts of money attachments. We already mentioned career, but there can be an attachment in your client's role in life as a homemaker or as a CEO or as a coach, for that matter. And if you have an attachment to that role, or your client has an attachment to that role, they might limit their growth in that role, or they might limit their growth to change roles, to go to a role that's at a higher level for them at that point in their career. There's incredible attachments when it comes to performance. If you've got to speak in front of a group or perform in a certain way, under pressure, let's say, if you're attached to things going a certain way, that's going to diminish your performance. In the area of health or fitness, you might have an attachment to food or a certain level of comfort or things going a certain way that might have you rigid and inflexible in your ability to move to the next level in those areas, to change your behavior, change your habits. So pretty much every area of your client's life could be impacted by their attachments in that area. So now I'm going to explain in a little bit more detail the attachment awareness process. So in this process, really all you're doing is very simple. You're really just coaching your client to be aware of their attachment. So you want to start by telling your client, just coaching your client, and say, notice where you're attached, or notice what you're attached to in this area. Just guide them in that awareness. Give them a second to be aware of that. And then coach them to acknowledge that. Just tell them. So first, I just want you to acknowledge that attachment. And by the way, they don't necessarily have to respond to that, but generally we can tell if our client is confirming or denying something. Just their silence may tell us a lot. Or they might say, yeah, you're right, I'm attached. And then just coach your client to repeat that as often as they need after the session. That means especially during, or better yet before, a moment where your client needs to let go of that attachment, to remain unconstrained by those attachments. And that's it. It's a pretty simple process. So what are the results that your client gets from the attachment awareness process? Well, first, your client will tend to let go, at least temporarily, when they actually do this process for themselves. A lot of times major attachments, they will come back over time, but at least they'll get a temporary reprieve from that attachment. They'll let go of it. And as your client lets go, fear disappears. I mean, fear is really often the symptom of being attached to something, or the attachment to something being a certain way. Neediness disappears. And how often does fear or neediness get in the way of a client's ability to perform in especially a high pressure situation? And finally, your client creates the possibility, at least, of flexibility and power in that situation. If you're attached, if you're needy, if you're worried about something, you're probably not going to be very flexible. There probably is a limit to the amount of power you can exude in that situation. But as soon as that attachment disappears, or at least the attachment's impact on your client disappears, or they let go of that attachment, suddenly they're flexible. They can play with the moment. They can have power where they didn't before. Finally, let's talk about the most common coaching myths and misconceptions around this thing that we're calling attachment. So First of all, this exercise, this process, it doesn't mean detach. We're not saying attachment is bad. We're not making attachment the enemy here and saying that your client should just be completely apathetic or detached from reality or detached from the results that they really do desire. That's not the point here. The point is awareness, not trying to crush or destroy attachment. Also, there are psychological misconceptions here. There's a conversation that I've heard around fear versus apathy. Like if your client's really afraid and then they detach, then they're suddenly apathetic about things, that's not necessarily the most empowering place to have them. Fear is when your client makes something more important than it really needs to be, at least at that time. And that is usually a result of attachment. Like, I'm so attached to this thing, I got a stranglehold on it because it's so important to me. Apathy is making something less important than it needs to be at that time, which, by the way, is almost always a lie. Usually when your client's apathetic about something that they literally brought up to talk to you about in the session, or it's an area that has an impact on them, even if they didn't bring it up, usually the reason they're apathetic about that is because they actually have an attachment in that area. They actually probably really care about that area, but maybe they failed at it in the past. Maybe they've had a sense of loss, or maybe that's an area of pain for them. So instead of taking that area on and deciding it's important to really work with that area, they lie to themselves and act like they are apathetic about it. Or they make up in their head that it really doesn't matter, just to get themselves out of pain. So fear or apathy, those two extremes, neither one of them is really acceptable. And this is not about making an apathetic client. And this is not even really about getting them out of fear. This is about them clarifying and realizing and being aware of the attachments that they have, so that they can find the greatest balance between making something as important as it really is and being motivated towards that, but also being flexible and powerful and fully committed in that process, which means that they can't have attachment limit them while they're going through that process. And that's the last piece I wanted to make sure I clarified here, is that a lot of times a client will come to a session and they'll say, wow, I'm so committed to this, it has to happen, I'm gonna do it or I'm gonna die. Something like that. Really, really intense about it. That's not committed. Now, it's great to be motivated, right? But chances are they're actually attached, they're not committed. Attached is like a weak addiction. It's like crack cocaine for your client. Committed means that they still want it. It doesn't mean they have no desire. It's just that their desire has not constrained their power in fully moving forward with that process, being unstoppable in that process. It's powerful, it's flexible, and it's free while your client moves towards that success. So once again, this is Jeffrey T. Suey with CoachesTrainingBlog.com. I hope you took some great value out of this video today. What's your experience with attachment? Do you have any attachments that you need to stay aware of? Has that worked for you? What about your clients? What are they attached to? I'd love to hear your feedback, so make sure you leave a comment with your thoughts or questions. Thanks for watching this video. Like it if you thought it was cool, and subscribe for even more of these videos. Oh, and by the way, you can also grab your own free step-by-step 30 days to become a coach video toolkit. Just go to CoachesTrainingBlog.com right now to get your 30-day coaching blueprint videos. You'll learn how to change your client's life in 45 minutes, other advanced coaching and practice building techniques, and more. Just go to the link I give you here and in the description, and you can get it instantly.